There, let me get the right ones on. Oh, no, those are not the right ones. Okay, let me get the right ones on here. All right, so we have a little mini lecture discussion here. You're the discussion part. That's you. About rhetoric, what that is. And you've read in your Everybody's a Writer, Everyone's a Writer, about this term. And I have to say, I'm going to bend down just a little bit. I am a big fan of this term because it transcends the idea of I'm in an English class, I write essays, and I walk through various modes of writing essays, right? And these modes, I'm going to show you my pet bear here. He makes an appearance every once in a while. Okay, get out of there. All right, so I walk my way through description. I walk my way through narration, and those are good. I mean, those are really actually fascinating. But throughout all that, I don't have a sense of a bigger picture. But there is one. This bigger picture has to do with a whole variety of approaches to a bigger issue. And that bigger issue is communication and messages. And as your text mentions, this goes back literally thousands of years to cave paintings like those in Lascaux, France, wherein we've got a culture of individuals who are leaving behind a message. So you have a message burning within you, I hope, sometimes. You absolutely want to get out there to the world. You have to find what that is. So that has to do with this term, rhetoric, which has to do with the whole nature of communication and making it effective, making it powerful, making it work. So having that message is only part of what we go through, wanting to get it across, be it artistic, be it musical, be it in terms of a short story, be it in terms of an essay, verbally, um, body language, is going to send a certain message. A smile sends a message. I can remember going into offices, and I'm sure you've had this experience, and the message sent by the person in the office is, I am behind this desk, and I am the authority, and you are the secondary person who is coming in here, who is of lesser importance. And the body language can give these signals as well. The eye contact, or even the lack of it, and the officiousness of the individual. But simply that whole business of coming across as the person who is of primary importance versus you coming into the office being secondary importance, that sends a message. So we send all these signals in so many different ways, right? Verbal and nonverbal. But if we're talking about the whole range of communication, then we're talking about rhetoric and making that effective from both the audience's point of view and the presenter's point of view. That's rhetoric. And we're talking about visuals too. I mean, that's why I'm so big on, since we're separated in space, we don't have to be separated in many other ways in terms of multimedia connections and collaboration. So this is all having to do with rhetoric, effective communication, and what goes into that, and being really fascinated by that. So you have a purpose, obviously. Break this down to a degree. And I'm going to be oversimplifying it just because of time, right? But you have a purpose. And rhetoric encompasses, again, oftentimes effective communication, and particularly with an eye towards persuasion. How it's used sometimes against us to manipulate us into accepting a certain position. And I mean, this can go back to the propaganda before the Iraqi war, and it can have to do with Obamacare. There's a whole faction of us that seems to think that history begins with the administration that we don't like, but it ends with the administration that we do like. But, unfortunately, it is widespread that these techniques are used against us. The little catchphrases, the slogans, the electioneering, the little gotcha techniques in the debates. And, you know, spin doctors can be on either side. In fact, they are on either side, let's face it. They're advertising folks. So this has to do with the argumentation component of rhetoric and the persuasion. Some people use those as different terms, persuasion being more of an emotional nature, argument being more of a rational, reasonable nature. Sometimes they're used interchangeably. So I don't want to confuse you about that, just so you know that. So we do have a purpose. You know, and what is the purpose? Well, oftentimes it is to convince, and I'm really pushing this because whether it's an essay exam or an out-of-class essay, 99% of the time in college writing, what you're doing is on some level intended to convince. It, on some level, intended to persuade. In fact, much of the writing that you're going to do, you know, whether it's to a car company about a defective part, or whether it's simply to advocate for yourself in a court of law or someone else, it's persuasive writing. It is presenting your case. So it's using evidence, a word that I use a lot. So let's talk about audience just a little bit. For your college audience, this is, I'd like you to think about this as a skeptical person or a skeptical group of people, sort of like a jury that hasn't made up its mind. It's not anti whatever your case or presentation is going to be, but it is not convinced. So how do you approach this? This really actually makes development easy. You know, I hear people in the position of having to write often say, I don't know how to squeeze more than a little paragraph out of this. And I noticed some of you had some difficulty on this, even on paraphrasing. It's okay. It's natural. But if you fill that void with a sense of audience, and the audience is skeptical, does not believe you, does not accept your point of view, does not buy in to whatever argument it is you're presenting, then you have to bring them with you. You have to use your reasoning. You have to use those brain cells to powerfully bring your audience with you and offer evidence. And, of course, look at the opposition points of view involved in that. Now, by the time you've done all that, you have more development, you have more to say than you can even squeeze in a 500 or 1,000-word essay. So that's the concept that you want to do. That's the nature of it. You want to see your audience as well? Yeah, okay, show me. Convince me, because I don't necessarily believe you, right? So when we make comments and include them in these statements, everyone does this, or everyone accepts this, or since the beginning of time, we're sort of acting like, well, yeah, our audience necessarily agrees with us. No. So this wonderful principle of rhetoric is this too. Maybe you write a little bit differently when you're in your social class using APA than when you're in English class. I think the differences are overstated and territorial, to be honest. Quality writing is quality writing. However, sometimes we hear little snide comments to the effect that, well, in your English class, you're supposed to just be creative and go off half-cocked on a tangent, but I want you to be scholarly in this class. Okay, if you buy it, if you've been exposed, I should say, to that sort of thing. There are differences, though, and I hear students say this, well, you know, this instructor expects this in this writing situation for a job is this way when I'm, you know, on my job as a nurse or on my job as, you know, an auto mechanic or executive for Walmart or whatever it is. That's the type of writing I need to do. As if to say, well, we can't adapt. We can't be flexible. That's the whole principle behind rhetoric, that I can tailor my presentation to different audiences, right? So I'm not going to talk to you the same way I would talk to a group of colleagues. I'm not going to talk to you the same way I would talk to a group of fifth graders, right? So it's according to the audience, and I don't find it to be terribly difficult or demanding, or it shouldn't be, that you're going to structure one presentation one way and another presentation slightly differently, as if to say, well, only one can be right. That defies rhetoric and common sense. So that's it. We can be aware of audience, and fine-tune a little bit whatever our presentation happens to be. And we talk in terms of presentation, not just in terms of the written word only. So this is a message. This is powerfully. This is, I mean, this is insight. Sometimes it is emotional. Sometimes it's rational. Sometimes it's a combination very powerfully of the two. But this is vital because we don't find this within ourselves. Then we don't come to the table, whether it's writing, speaking, or any other form of communication, with that inherent connection that we can make to an audience, to share it with an audience. That we found something in me, we want to share it. And it's bursting to get out. That's the principle of that message that we want to convey. So what about argument? It can be used or abused. And I just want to allude to this because there are ethical considerations in argument. If you become extremely good at it, then of course you can represent the wrong side and be paid to do that. So this was what Socrates was objecting to, and this is what sometimes many object to in terms of, well, what are today's polls are, or what's the tweet going on today? So let's please the general public in terms of what they're tweeting about today, and how superficial sometimes can we be. But then we should gear our message politically to shoehorn it into that little niche of what the public is expecting right now, right now today, and follow that. Now tomorrow is going to change, so we've already forgot that political message. So also this can be used, as I've mentioned, against us, to manipulate us, because a shrewd consumer looks through the fallacies, looks through, and we'll talk about these later and go into depth and detail on them, the deceptions involved in the advertising. So the ethics of it might have to do with if we have acquired the skill of argument, have we used it for the betterment of mankind, or have we used it simply to, I know sharply how to make my case, and I can make it look like this guy didn't commit the murder. I can make it look like that because I'm skilled in argument. I'm skilled in manipulation. So I don't know. Maybe these folks who do that go to the wrong side of the afterlife when it comes to rhetoric. Okay, enough said. You've got a lot in the text on this, but I wanted to just add a little bit of a sidelight to help you key into this.